How's it going, my friends? Since my last video analyzing the Horse Race Tests tournament trailer and trying to predict the tournament lineup based on that did fairly well, I thought I'd just shit out a quick one going over what I got right and what I got wrong, and also which key details of the tournament were kind of foreshadowed within the trailer that it's now possible to go back and sort of link to the completed tournament. There are really two main points of discussion I want to touch on. The first being, of course, the green horse, and the second being the gross horses, the returning in some form, Jovial Merriment, Thinking Man's Ponderer, and Cyan. You know, obviously I was correct in my prediction that there wouldn't be actual racehorses with horse races in them in the race, but I don't think anyone really expected that to happen. I'm gonna try not to give myself too much credit for that. The stuff regarding the green horse is interesting, because up until a couple of days before, or maybe the day before the tournament, Blake Andrews was telling people, there is no green horse, I don't know what you're talking about. But the trailer that he posted back at the end of April included the green horse in like one of the very first shots. It's like 5 seconds in. And I do think it was meant to be kind of intentionally misleading. I almost think maybe what he and Lumpy Touch were going for with the green horse was like, in old video game trailers, a lot of the time there would be something or some area or some stuff, some character that didn't end up making it into the finished game, and it would become kind of a legend online, and then for decades later there'd be people going, I wish this thing or this guy made it into the game. I think the fact that all four of these horses are just doorknob recolored is quite interesting. I have to imagine these are assets that Lumpy Touch made, but Lumpy Touch is clearly a big fan of the horse races, so he would know there isn't a green one. And he'd also know that the horses aren't just recolors of doorknob and they each have their own design. I don't think I articulated this point well in my original recording. I think the gag of the four horses racing at the beginning, I think the joke is that they're like stock placeholder assets, and one of those placeholder assets happened to be a green, which then wasn't used in the finished Horse Races game or Horse Races series, I guess. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I think that I feel like that's the bit they were going for. I could be totally off the mark, but I don't know, I really like it. Like, I think stuff like that is very cool, and so I think a possible deliberate attempt to recapture that very unique, very unusual feeling, I think that's cool as fuck, man. I don't know, maybe it was deliberately misleading, maybe it was just meant to be a general, you know, these aren't even necessarily the horses you know, this is just a horse race featuring some different horses who happen to be the same color. But with the knowledge that Horse Race Test Tournament spoilers from here on out, there is a lime green horse, and that was the big reveal at the end of the tournament. It does lead me to believe that this was intentional to kind of stir the fandom pot, you know what I mean? To get people talking. Indeed, to brew up some excitement for the eventual appearance of the green horse. We gotta talk about the green horse for a bit. So, the green horse that appears at the end of HRTT uses the base horse design from the very beginning of Horse Race Tests. And we could take this to mean that this was kind of a last minute addition, that Blake Andrews doesn't really have the green horse's design finalized yet. But if it's meant to be a character reveal, you know what I mean? It's the big teaser at the end of the thing. You'd think it would include a design and not just the color. And so that has me thinking, first bold prediction of this video, maybe the idea with the green horse is that he's intentionally shaped like the original horses from the original tests. You know, from a gameplay perspective, this is kind of interesting. It's like, well, let's see how this design would fare against modern hard hitters like Resolute Mind Afternoon, and I guess we're calling her a Fearsome Fate now. And narratively, I don't know, I kind of like what that implies about Lime Green's character. You know, maybe his approach to racing is that he wants to bring it back to basics. He doesn't really care about overcoming the freaks or rescuing Cyan or whatever. He's just here to race, man. I think that's kind of cool. I think I might like Lime Green, as long as he knows his fucking place and doesn't try to get in Red's way. Now, of course, the really interesting part, the part I got dead wrong, is the matter of the four horses of the apocalypse and the two horses of the looking at each other at nighttime. I've come up with a few theories as to which horses these could be alluding to. Obviously now we know the final lineup at the tournament, and there are 6 horses. It's just that it's not explicitly clear what the formation is, because one thing we know is that it isn't a mysterious figure and 3 of her standard mutant goons. There were 2 standard goons in the tournament, Nighttime Knifemare and Garbage Bin, and then there were the 3 resurrected shambolic corpses of the former Jovial Merriment, the former Cyan, and the former Thinking Cap. I'm running out of these, which almost seems like the obvious correct answer. The reason they're black isn't necessarily because they're dark in color, it's because they're shrouded in darkness in a more metaphorical sense, meaning we aren't supposed to know their identities yet. That's an idea I quite like. I think that's kind of cool. That would make the next 2 horses we see Nighttime Knifemare and Garbage Bin. Just possible. Guy on the left here is kind of a mashed up mutant alien looking thing. One on the right, missing an ear, which I didn't point out last time. Its head is kind of sharp, like a knife, and it is, most importantly, nighttime when we see them. But Nighttime Knifemare isn't that kind of silvery grey colour, unless it's a matter of lighting. And the horse we're looking at here actually is a murky green. It's just illuminated by the moon or whatever. It doesn't really resemble Nighttime Knifemare to me, and it certainly doesn't resemble Garbage Bin. So the second possibility is that this horse we're looking at, the fucked up silvery grey one, is a mysterious figure. It's definitely the horse it looks the most like, in terms of colour and in terms of jagged design. And the horse they're staring meaningfully at is either Garbage Bin or Nighttime Knifemare. And yeah, I think it looks more like Garbage Bin than really anyone else. Of course, as the gross analogues to Cyan and Unintelligible Wisdom, I still got it. It is easy to imagine them having some kind of fucked up facsimile of their very loving relationship.
The girl met a handsome prince and fell in love with the shadow. At that same time,
Garbage Bin.
But that one's weird because it means one of these 4 horses is Nighttime Knifemare. And that's just weird, right? Like, that feels weird. Nighttime Knifemare obviously isn't the one on the far right, the glowing one. So it'd be weird if that was Fearsome Figure, Fantasy, Oob, and one of the goons, the lesser of the goons. So on to theory number 3, and this is the one I actually do really believe in. I think the shot of the 2 horses staring wistfully at each other is the horse once known as Cyan and the horse once known as conceptual fucking realism or something like that. Which means I was partly wrong. Not Cyan. But also partly right. Presumed dead. Clearly something has happened to these 2 in Jovial Merriment. They've either been killed and had their bodies inhabited by some of these disgusting creatures, or the gooey goons have recreated changeling facsimiles of them. The horse we once knew as Cyan is dead, almost certainly, in a way I don't think there's any coming back from. That is the price they paid for Jovial Merriment's failure. I'm sorry, I was trying not to smile when I said that. Which means the 3 shadowy horses are a mysterious figure, Garbage Bin, and Nighttime Knifemare, and the glowing horse is a fearsome fate. This is the theory I like the most, and I think I believe the most. And the reason for that is, I think it's foreshadowing the eventual tournament. Throughout the trailer, there's this effect. It's like a swooping light pattern, leaving trails across the screen. That could just be a visual effect, but there were 2 things I noticed about that effect when I was rewatching the trailer for this video. The light swoops around most of the horses, but it swoops directly through that glowing white horse. And the second is that this glowing trail of light is orange. So if the glowing lights are orange, maybe the glowing horse is orange. And maybe the reason they're shining, bathed in light here, and swooping around all over the trailer was to indicate to us, in a way that's indecipherable until the tournament's over, that this horse would be our eventual winner. Not that we didn't all know that already. I mean, come on. It's Mary. Even if it's not Mary anymore, it's Mary. Which adds a second layer of meaning. Which adds a second layer of meaning to there being the 3 horses accompanying that one glowing horse. It's not just the 4 horses of the apocalypse. It's this horse bathed in light who fucking rose from the dead, being the shining light that guides the slimy scumbags out of the darkness. Jovial merriment, now in a sense quite literal, has become Christ. So that's about all I had to say. I will touch on some things that people pointed out to me that I didn't notice the first time I went through and analyzed this trailer. During the shots of each of the individual Light World horses, yellow, well, lightning strikes thrice's eye glows orange. And that's obviously to represent that her focus is purely on jovial merriment, either what they once were or what they are now. Resolute Mind Afternoon running directly towards the screen. I think it does a really good job of communicating their eye on the prize nature, which was obviously reflected in their performance in the tournament. They were hot on a Fist and Fate's heels, chasing them directly into the finals in the second round. And Downtown Skybox and Comely Material Morning got grouped together because they fucking suck. Bye!